Hello everybody, welcome back to another game of Rory Story Cubes. Today, once more, we're going to roll a bunch of dice, and we're going to do that 3 times in a row, and then we'll have 3 stories at the end of it. And hopefully they'll be good, and if not, then they weren't very good, and that's just your luck, I suppose, or my luck, I suppose, because I'm going to roll a bunch of dice, and who knows what we're going to get. So I'm going to grab 9 of them right now, so we can get started. And once again, I shouldn't have to repeat this, unless you have not watched any of these videos before, of course, in which case, hello! I hope you're doing okay. And if you have been here, of course, you will know that I will ask you to pause the video once I'm done putting all the dice in a row here for you to look at. So you can look at them, come up with your own story, post them in the comments below, and then we shall see how we do. Anyway, let's take a look what I have in my hands right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in one go. Amazing. Let's roll them and see what we've got. Just that one didn't want to go. Okay, fine. Here we go. First 4. Upside. And these are cuffs, handcuffs. Somebody standing in the door. Somebody pushing something over, I think. And this is an international space station. Or some type of intergalactical floating city. Whichever you like. And a file. And a flower. Rice. This looks like microscope, and this is somebody yelling or being scared of Wi-Fi. Either way, make sure to pause the video here, come up with your own story, post it below. I'm gonna take a look what I'm gonna do with all these things right here. It's a bit of a varied mess. Let's take a look. There was once a person who actually worked as a cop. There you go. He was new as an intern, and he was basically asked to bring people food and all that sort of thing. And at one point they asked him to buy flowers for the chief's wife, because it was supposedly her 50th birthday, and he had a card printed for her, and then he went to deliver it, and of course she wasn't 50 at all, so she was very upset, and so was the chief, and everybody else was laughing behind his back, because that's the sort of thing they do with interns. They make you do stuff that you don't necessarily want to. Just a bit of a hazing process, you know, that sort of thing happened. Either way, so one day they gave him another assignment. They said that there was a missing file somewhere in the big archive room in the back, and they needed that because they wanted to reinvestigate the DNA evidence that was part of the file, because they thought that maybe there was some type of connections to aliens. And so they sent him to the archive room, which was actually a really large archive room that hadn't been used in, say, 20 years. Nobody had been there for ages, and he opened the door and it was super dark in there because the light bulb had been blown out ages ago. It was left burning for many hours, many days, and then it just gave up eventually. Anyway, he was standing there in the door and it was really dark in there, so he tried calling out for somebody, because he was told that there were people working in the back who may be able to help him find the file that they were looking for. Unfortunately, nobody responded. So he started stumbling around and eventually ended up pushing things over, and stuff fell, and all sorts of things went clanking all around the room, rolling about and all that sort of thing. And he kind of got lost, and he spent some time wandering around, and eventually found his way back to the lights. And when he had come out, he managed to grab something. It was indeed a file, but it was not the one he wanted. Instead, it was an old conspiracy file, which was about aliens that had come in, well, basically land on Earth and turned into flowers because it was pollen and not like creature alien stuff that had come from the other places in the galaxy. So that was a bit of a weird thing. Well, anyway, so that was a file on an old lady who said that their flowers were actually not from this world. And so she filed a police report because she didn't want them to take over her house in the middle of the night. Because occasionally that sort of thing happens. At least in Hollywood it does. Anyway, he found the file and people were laughing at him, but still he had like his day of it. And after a while he was no longer an intern. He became an actual official cop. After a while, of course, he did have to go to the police academy in order to do that. And every time a new intern showed up, it was his job to send them into the archives to find the missing file, which turns out to actually exist. But nobody knew where it was. Actually, everybody was kind of interested in the file itself. That's why they kept sending interns in there to try and find it. But nobody did. Get out of here, fly. Anyway, so that was the first story. I'm going to put these guys aside. There you go. Now you don't see them, but I do. We're going to grab the next 9 and see what we can come up with there. hope you're enjoying these stories, and I'm hoping that if you have dice like these, that you're enjoying using them because they're quite fun. They're also quite fun to play with kids with because the kids have a lot of imagination. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can even use them with adults who like them just as much. So it's like an all-round fun family activity. Everybody likes to roll the dice and tell the story, even if it's just lining up whatever they see. It can still be fun. Alright, let's roll these guys. And if it's not fun, then make sure to punish them. Alright, here we go. First 5. Somebody pointing. We had that one last week as well. Here is a magnet. Here is Medusa. There's a hair that I don't want there to be. Here is a ladder. There you go. And a map. Okay, some good pieces here. Now I wonder what these 4 are going to give me. Hopefully something that works. Like Microsoft works. How old is that? Here's some medicine. Here's a person in space. And here is a tower place and a sloth. Alright, interesting combination. Not sure how we're going to use this sloth, but make sure to pause the video here once again to look at these dice, come up with your own story, post it below. I'm going to take a look what I can do here. There's a lot of traveling going on in this story. Interesting. Alright, let's see now. Once upon a time there was an alien. There he is. And he had flown through space for quite a while. He had a map that told him where he needed to go. There it is. And he was trying to find Earth. And map actually turned out to be true because even though his friends had given it to him as a joke because they thought it was the wrong map, and eventually it would lead him back to their own space station, which it didn't. He ended up finding Earth, which is exactly what he wanted to do, which is great. So he climbed down from heaven with a really long stairway to heaven and back. And he wanted to look around because actually he was looking for a particular city with a lot of towers, but he wasn't sure where it was. And so he asked for directions, and the people were like, yeah, I guess you could go over here and ask that guy. And when you go down that street over there to the right, and then I don't know what goes on behind that wall, so you have to ask whoever's walking around there. So eventually he ended up walking around for ages, and he wandered into a forest where he's found one of these creatures. I don't know if they normally hang out in forests, but this one did. This one was lost as well. So they're both lost souls. Of course, he knew about Medusas because he had read up about Earth's history, or at least the stories, the legends, and all that sort of thing. And he knew that there would be danger if you were to confront this lost Medusa. So what he did was he used his, I guess you would call that a magnet, but it's an alien magnet. Instead of drawing metals, it drew in glass, because he needed something to either cut the creature's snakes off the head with, that would maybe petrify him if he looked at them, and instead he wound up getting a bottle with unknown contents, and he wasn't quite sure what it was, but he threw it at the Medusa who caught it, and she thought, that's interesting, that looks like some type of drink. This person is seeing me, they think, or they know that I'm lost, and they think, oh, this person could use a drink, how nice of them. I know they didn't want to look at me, because looking at me makes them turn into stone, so I'll thank them later. So she drank the stuff, and there was a puff of smoke, and suddenly she became a sloth, because that's the dice we still had left. Anyway, so he was now suddenly saved from the Medusa, who was now a sloth, who was actually quite a cool pet, because some people like sloths, and I don't know why, because they're really slow. They're cute and everything, but I'm not sure if they're meant to be pets. Anyway, so he had a sloth to show as a trophy of his visit to Earth with the faulty map, which worked after all. So he climbed back up to his spaceship, and then he went back home to tell his friends what a great adventure he had, and all his friends were jealous because they wanted to be there as well. They said, you should have called me when you were there, J'accuse. And next time you end up having fun adventures, make sure to invite us, because otherwise you're not really a good friend and we don't like you very much. And he said, you know what, screw you, I'm going home with my sloth. Alright, so that was him. Bit of a short story there. Almost a cartman. And that was that for our traveling, I was going to say merchant, but it was a traveling spaceman. So I'm going to put these guys aside as well. Oops, just like that. In the unknown territory. And we're going to grab 9 more dice. And we're going to go do this whole thing again with the rolling and all that sort of thing, and the talking and the coming up with stuff that you normally wouldn't make connections with. Let's go grab these guys. Let's see how many I have now. Randomly searching through this bag. 3, 5, And that's 9. Great. 3 times in a row the exact amount. Can it get any better? Well, hopefully if we don't roll that clown, then it'll be much better. Let's take a look. Here's 5 of them. Oops, almost dropped one. There we go. This is one I've not had before. Let's see what this is. This is a very unusual sort of... Oh, it's a door. You can see the outline of a door in the dark here, and there's like tentacles coming out of it. You should look at it from this angle, actually, not like this. There you go. So this is a door, and there's tentacles coming out of it like that. So that's what it is, tentacle door. This is a person walking, hopefully not towards that. This is a submarine, which we all live on. Here is a bee, and a medical care package dropping in from the sky. Next 4. Oops, that one rolled off screen. It was, or is, a toad or frog, whichever you like. A baby carriage, somebody looking like they're a little bit confused. And then there's this guy, I guess Cyclops with a caveman Cyclops. Cave Clops. Right, so that's those 9. Make sure to pause the video here. Take a look at the dice, post your story below, and then let's take a look what I can make out of it. Why don't we start with... our adventurer, the brave adventurer, as a matter of fact. He was out on a mission. It was World War II, and he had a submarine all but to himself, because he was actually a type of a spy. And he was going to use the submarine to get into areas of the German, or across the German border, which were unknown and also dangerous. And we needed more information on that, because he was English and he needed to figure out what the Germans were up to. So he had a submarine, and he went into like a whole bunch of rivers, the Rhine, and it went into whatever river comes after that. And eventually he ended up stranded in an area where he couldn't continue with his submarine. So he went out to explore, and he found, of course, a whole bunch of toads, because there's like lots of frogs and toads around watery areas, but also a house in the distance, which he couldn't quite place. It looked a little bit unusual, so he was like, I wonder what this is. Well, I'm up here to explore. I brought my German dictionary, so I'm going to be okay if I run into anybody. And he decided to approach the house to see what was going on. So when he approached the house, he knocked on the door, and it flew open, and all these tentacles like came out of nowhere and started trying to grab him. And he jumped back because he was a little bit scared by that, because, well, more than a little bit, because how often do you see that happening? And he tried to get away, but one of the tentacles wrapped around his ankle and dragged him inside slowly but surely, and then shut the door behind him. And as soon as the door was shut, the tentacles, hello fly, get out of here. The tentacles decided to close the door and then disappear, leaving him in a room with a basket. And the basket was making a noise, but it looked like a baby carrier, but it wasn't making baby noises. He wasn't quite sure what it was. It was buzzing a little bit, like humming, and the blanket would like puff up eventually. So he went over there, and since it was the only thing in the room, he wasn't quite sure what to do other than check it out. So slowly he approached the thing and pulled away the blanket to reveal a bee, which of course you weren't expecting at all with that dice still lying there. And it buzzed away, and it gave him quite a scare, but it didn't like sting him or anything. It just like went to freedom somehow. And he decided that that was a good idea, because bees, they're not necessarily known for knowing the way out, but at least they know where the light is. So he followed the bee to where there's the light, and he saw a broken window and hanging off of a rafter, because the broken window was like on the first story basically, but there was no floor. So he was like looking up through the floor, and he saw hanging from one of the I guess what was the floor, this care package was hanging there by its parachute. And he jumped up and he grabbed it to tickle up what was inside, so he could maybe, like, get some food or whatever is in there. Maybe there's chocolate in those packages, no idea. He didn't find that in particular, but he did have bandages and all that sort of thing, so make sure to stick that in his pocket. And he was a little bit happier about having all that stuff, because that also meant that he had things that he could use to take care of himself in case it was needed. So then he had that package, and he looked around, and there was a door, or more of a trap door, like in the floor. And he went in there, and there was a very long staircase which ended in another one of these doors. And once again, he was familiar with this tactic, so he just didn't struggle, let the things drag him inside, because he didn't have much else to do, because they were so long they could have grabbed him standing at the top of the stairs. He had no hope of returning without them grabbing him. So he went in there, and the tentacles dropped him off near this guy, was not very happy because he had stepped in some glass somewhere along the line. The window that had broken from the care package had shattered glass all over the place, and this guy had been walking around upstairs at one point, but he also got dragged in by these guys when he was trying to hide from the scary sharp things that were poking his foot. And he had been sitting there for quite some time now with a bleeding foot, and he was not happy. He was actually quite sedated because he had lost quite a bit of blood. Anyway, so our friend over here, he knew what to do. He fixed the guy's foot, the creature's foot, because it was a cyclops. He'd never seen them before. Also, he did not appear to have any command of any languages, not German nor English. So they spoke in sign languages, and he told him, "I'm going to fix your foot," and so he did. And then he gave the guy some painkillers, and in about half an hour or 45 minutes, this guy was back on his feet, and he was happy. So he used his club to break down this door, so they could both escape. There they go, they're going out the door now. And that was all they really needed to do in that house, actually. There wasn't much else for them to do. So this guy went back to wherever he came from. This guy took his submarine, reported that there was nothing interesting here except for a weird house that had tentacles for doors, and then he went back home to report the end of his mission, that he hadn't really found much except for maybe expanding a little bit on the river map, which may have been useful, maybe not. Anyways, that was his story, his adventure during the Second World War. He came back alive, and he came back a hero for doing other things, other something that didn't happen during this mission. So that was that. Our hero, the submarine man. There. That was 3 stories. Hope you enjoyed it. They were a little bit all over the place, but eventually had some type of narrative, which is, I guess, the most important thing. And we had some fun, which is the most important thing. So I hope you had fun as well. I'm going to thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and bye-bye for now.